If there is one character that will be considered broken for many patches to come, it's definitely Jinhsi because she does insane amounts of damage with a very low on-field time. However, pulling for her comes at a cost because you need characters like Jeji or Yinlin on your team to provide coordinated attacks, which helps fill Jinhsi's incandescent stacks or forte stacks more quickly. And yes, I know Yuan will exist, but his coordinated attacks range is quite limited, which can drive you crazy when the enemy moves out of the circle provided by his resonance skill. And he takes the healer slot, which costs you damage amplification outro buffs from healers like Verena and Showkeeper. But what if I told you that you don't need to spend Astrides to pull for coordinated attacks unit that we currently have in the game right now, or the ones that are coming in the future, if you have Brant on your account? Here's exactly what I mean.
Endless reverberation.
The quick showcase that you just saw clearly shows that Brant was able to regenerate more than half of Jinhsi's forte stacks and Baizha took care of the rest. But how exactly does this work? If you're new here on the channel, welcome to another synergy breakdown video specifically for Brant and Jinhsi, where we test different characters and see how they work together to potentially save you money and time in the process. If this video proves helpful or enjoyable in any way, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and consider turning on the bell icon because it helps me out more than you know. Before we proceed any further, I want you guys to know that I have a complete guide for Brant, Baizha, and Jinhsi on the channel, so be sure to check them out if you want a bit more detailed information other than the ones that you mostly find in simple guides on YouTube. Let's start off with why you should even play this team in the first place. Jinhsi does not have a dedicated buffer at the current state of the game if you take the current character roster into consideration. Ideally, we need a character that provides spectral damage amplification, resonance skill damage amplification, and provides coordinated attacks at the same time. The absence of such character is why you mostly see Yinlin and Jeji on Jinhsi teams due to the coordinated attacks that they can provide. But depending on the type of account that you have, you might encounter problems with such team compositions. Yinlin is the dedicated buffer for electro damage dealers like Kukaracha and Zhang Liao due to their electro attribute and resonance liberation damage scaling. And since most players have access to Zhang Liao because he was given for free during the Moonlit Festival event, using Yinlin on a Jinhsi team means that Zhang Liao will lose his dedicated buffer. The same thing applies to Jeji. The release of Carlotta onto the character roster made Jeji her dedicated buffer due to Carlotta's glacial attribute and resonance skill damage scaling. So using Jeji in a Jinhsi team means that Carlotta will also lose her dedicated buffer. But it all depends on the type of account that you have, because some of you might have Jeji while not necessarily having Carlotta, and the same thing goes for Yinlin, which is the main point of the Synergy Breakdown series to provide you with more diverse team options at your disposal. Now let's get into how Jinhsi and Brant work together. Jinhsi has an outro skill that reduces the time it takes for Jinhsi to recover forte stacks if a party member inflicts damage of the same attribute from 3 seconds as stated in her forte description to 1 second, which lasts for 20 seconds. But the phrase same attribute is a bit confusing because you might think that it only applies to the damage inflicted from the spectral attribute. However, what the game does not tell you is that the outro skill quite literally takes the Errors of Unity mechanic from her forte and puts it on crack to generate more forte stacks. That's why if you start your rotations with a character like Jeji and you don't activate Jinhsi's free outro provided by the Illuminous Epiphany or the Dragon Nuke forte skill, this will be the amount of forte stacks you can regenerate after an outro from Jeji to Jinhsi, which is quite terrible. That's why it's always recommended to start Jinhsi's Dragon Nuke skill before you do your rotations. Remember when I said her outro skill takes the Errors of Unity mechanic from her forte and puts it on crack? It says here in her forte description that Jinhsi gains 1 forte stack anytime resonators in the team do any kind of damage, and the outro skill will allow it to regenerate 1 forte stack per second instead of 3 seconds. This is where Brant comes in. And no, I'm not even talking about his outro skill that amplifies resonance skill damage by 25%, which is good for Jinhsi's Dragon Nuke Forte skill. Brant's ability to inflict multiple hits if you successfully perform his full combo, including the mid-air charged attacks and the 4 normal basic attacks, regenerate a lot of Forte stacks for Jinhsi. Take a look at this clip right here for example. I activated Jinhsi's Dragon Nuke skill and immediately swapped to Brant. From there I jumped and held my basic attack button to perform all of his mid-air combos, including 2 mid-air charged attacks and 4 mid-air basic attacks, and then used his Forte skill. After the intro from Jinhsi, you can see that I have recovered exactly half of her Forte stacks from Brant alone, which is quite amazing considering the fact that he does not provide any coordinated attacks. But if I don't use Jinhsi's outro skill before doing Brant's full combos, Jinhsi ends up with this amount of Forte stacks, which is quite terrible, even though Jinhsi has some Forte stacks to begin with. This means that you have 20 seconds after Jinhsi's outro skill for Brant and your healer to inflict damage in order to generate full Forte stacks for Jinhsi. And speaking of healer, Baizha will be the best option since her coordinated attacks are of the Glacial attribute and they attack the enemy automatically, so you don't lose stacks on Jinhsi even if the enemy sends you flying across the field. She's also free, and if you've been playing the game for a while, you probably have her S4, which increases the coordinated attacks she can inflict on the enemy. She also doesn't need any heavy investment. You just need to level her up until you can unlock the Harmonic Range passive skill that drops an orb on the ground, which buffs attack by 15% for the resonator that picks it up on the field. For those of you wondering how Verena performed in this team composition, she did not really do well in terms of regenerating Forte stacks for Jinhsi, because every time I intro from Brant to Jinhsi, we are missing a couple of Forte stacks, so stick with Baizha since her coordinated attacks are of a different element other than Spectral. Brant also indirectly provides more resonance energy for Jinhsi since he doesn't need an outro skill from Baizha to fully fill his concerto energy. So with the rotation I'm about to cover, Jinhsi can use her liberation every rotation, increasing your overall DPS. Before we get into the rotation breakdown, here's the builds I'm currently running on every resonator in this team composition. Here's a simple graphical representation of what you need to do. We first start by using Brant's Echo skill. You need to swap to another character, preferably Jinhsi, before the Dragon of Dirge Echo skill takes off. Then do basic attacks with Jinhsi, use her skill but cancel the animation with her liberation to save you some time. Here I grapple to avoid knockbacks from the enemy. Do basic attacks, use her Echo skill, and then use the Dragon Nuke skill. Intro with Baizha and use her liberation. The reason why we don't use Baizha's liberation at the start of the rotation is that we want to make full use of Baizha's coordinated attacks after Jinhsi's outro skill, as I explained earlier. Do 4 basic attacks with Baizha, use her skill, Echo skill, and then intro with Jinhsi. After the intro, press Jinhsi's skill twice to increase the amount of resonance energy she can recover so that we can use her liberation every rotation. Now swap to Brant, use her skill, liberation, and do the full basic attack and heavy attack combo to regenerate more Forte stacks for Jinhsi. Use his Forte skill, Echo skill, and intro with Jinhsi. Use her skill, Echo skill, basic attacks, and grapple for knockback safety. As you can see right here, I almost have a fully charged liberation, so I could have used it here to end the rotation, but I didn't notice it, so I used it in the next rotation instead. Use her Dragon Nuke skill to end the rotation. Intro with Baizha and use her liberation first before you use her skill with full Forte stacks from your basic attacks for proper resonance energy management, and then rinse and repeat the rotation. In terms of team synergy, Brant can fit into so many teams and I've barely even scratched the surface, so expect more videos on his synergy with other resonators in the game. If YouTube got it right, you should like this video that pops up on your screen, so be sure to give it a watch and join our Discord community if you're having any issues with the game or you just want a place to chill or hang out. Link will be in the video description. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.